Good day to all, I am Peter No Dinh Van from Vietnam. I belong to the clerical congregation of the Blessed Korean Martyrs. I am a fourth-year student of St. Paul Seminary Foundation. In this video, I would like to present a thesis, a study about education, entitled Tracing Deweyan Pragmatism in the Technical Vocational Education Training in Vietnam. Due to the last proposal of study, the title was Deweyan and Confucian Vietnamese Education. Since it was large in its discussion extent and was not able to reach a specific area, so the study was recommended to trace Dewey's pragmatic philosophy in the technical vocational education training, with its practical learning experience modes. Then the title of study became Tracing Deweyan Pragmatism in the Technical Vocational Education Training in Vietnam, and focusing in three problems. First, what is the nature of technical vocational education training in Vietnam? Second, what is Dewey's pragmatic philosophy of education? And third, what aspects of Deweyan pragmatism can be traced in the technical vocational education training in Vietnam? Based on the given and approval of the panelists, this study intends to trace Dewey's philosophy of pragmatism in the vocational training program in Vietnam, in order to see how the concept of learning by doing and student-centered education could contribute to the progress of the traditionally Confucian, which is teacher-centered educational system in Vietnam. The study will then be guided by the following questions. First, what is the nature of technical vocational education training in Vietnam? Second, what is Dewey's pragmatic philosophy of education? Third, what aspects of Deweyan pragmatism can be traced in the technical vocational education training in Vietnam? The study claims that, first, Vietnam's technical vocational education training advocates learning while doing in direct experience. Second, Dewey's philosophy of education is student-centered, learning by doing paradigm that seek in continued experience and on-hand practice. And third, the traces of Deweyan pragmatism in technical vocational education training in Vietnam are learning, teaching by practical performing, operating subject matters in direct experience in curriculum training programs equip learners with skill to process mechanical and technological products in lived environments. The following related literatures have provided the researcher the much-needed foundation in assuming the problems of the study as well as the subsequent discussions. That, through Dewey's idea on education, wherein his writings of experience and education, which is central in experience that according to Dewey, education is a social process. Education is growth. Education is not preparation for life, but it is life itself. Dewey has strongly emphasized a student-centered curriculum. Authentic learning must be valued and centered on the natural interests of children, their desire to communicate with others, to build things, to inquire about things, and to express themselves artistically. The study also discover a practical and doing in learning in technical vocational education training educational system in Vietnam. Its practical characteristic is mentioned through law on vocational education and training. In technical vocational education training country profiles, reports, assessments and other studies in vocational training and higher education in Vietnam. This is the conceptual framework of the study. This framework is a tracing of Dewey's philosophy of education and technical vocational education training in Vietnam. Since Dewey focused his concept of experience through instrumentalism in education on learning by doing and on hands learning, which means to learn, it is not only by the theory, but also by the practice. Dewey thought that people learned the best through experience. He thought that knowledge could be falsified. Thus, it needed to be consistently challenged and experimented on. It is found in technical vocational education training educational system in Vietnam that for the development and integration with the world, a mode of learning, teaching and curriculum that supply a skill for worker and students are practiced, where they are able to face with matters while learning, and practice on hand and directly experience which connect directly for future growth. The structure of study will analyze as following. First problem the study will analyze, present and expose the nature of technical vocational education training in Vietnam. To give an overview of technical vocational education training system, its modes of vocational training in Vietnam, with governance system and the technical practical education institutions, particularly in Hanoi Industrial College, Ho Chi Minh City Industry and Trade College and Vietnam Germany Vocational College. The second problem, the study will expose how Dewey's pragmatic thought was built up, his pragmatic philosophy of education, which is with the same methods analyzing, presenting, And then in the third problem the study will follow and discover AN pragmatism in the technical vocational education training in Vietnam by tracing and examine method in particular aspects of teaching, learning, curriculum together with its aim of growth. The study focuses its range on the notion about history, teaching, learning system of technical vocational education training education system, especially to the three institutions Hanoi Industrial College, Ho Chi Minh City Industry and Trade College and Vietnam Germany vocational training together with the current matters in technical vocational education training of Vietnam, and also the study will toward to the present education in Vietnam nowadays. The also study limits its ranges on Dewey's pragmatic philosophy of education and teaching, learning, curriculum and his philosophy's background. This study is a calling for further development in the traditionally Confucian education system in Vietnam. The study wants to suggest an integration of a new process in education to ascertain a more inclusive educational philosophy to breed a contemporarily responsive educational system. Based on the very democratic education of Dewey, this research wants to further emphasize and support an efficient educational system via the integration of the student-centered approach. It will help the learner to recognize self-experience and examine life. Furthermore, for Dewey's philosophy of education, this study is an example of comparison within teacher-centered and student-centered of education, and a way of what is bearing positive and negative. The discussion of study will answer as following the problems of the study. First, what is nature of technical vocational education training in Vietnam? This segment includes technical vocational education training's background of how it came to develop in the context of Vietnam, with its informal and formal modes together with the education system as well as programs of being under the administration of Ministry of Labor, Invalids and Social Affairs and Ministry of Education and Training, and the natural characteristic of practical education in three vocational schools, namely, Ho Chi Minh City Industrial Trade College, Hanoi Industrial College and Vietnam, Germany. Vietnam's technical vocational education training system has changed over time, especially after the implementation of Doi Moi renovation policy in 1986, where the number of vocational training schools fell down from 279 in 1987 to 129 in 1998. Since 2001, the Vietnamese government has worked to strengthen the technical vocational education training system to respond to the increased demand for skilled workers, and to classify technical vocational education training into three levels, namely, college, secondary, and primary. That according to the Report on Vocational Training 2011, in Vietnam there were 1,293 vocational training providers, including 443 vocational colleges and vocational schools, and 849 vocational centers. Vocational education exists in its informal and formal modes together with the education system, as well as programs always characterized by practice and direct experience, that students are educated in technical and vocational training over a period of 1 to 4 years, gaining knowledge and skills in both practice and theory. Representing for practical education, where the common way of learning is experiential and practical, that is emphasized over the theoretical learning. Particularly Ho Chi Minh City Industrial Trade College, through the main focus is training and providing for the learner professional and expertise knowledge by directly practice and on touch with the subject matter of learning. With 15 theoretical units, 30-45 units of practice, discussion, and experiment. In Hanoi Vocational College, with its mission as to give quality of knowledge, expertise, skills, and ethical qualities for students, through its two main programs, which are engineering professional secondary education courses and short-term technical training programs. These programs highlight practical training of 60 to 70% of the total course hours were allocated for practical training, while 30 to 40% was allocated for academic lectures. Through such programs, which can be said that technical vocational education training educational system is practical learning with concrete experience. The second problems, what is the AN pragmatic philosophy? In this segment, in order to see what is pragmatic philosophy, it includes Dewey's philosophy's background, the central of experience with its experimental inquiry process, the standard of experiences which are continuity and interaction, with the growth as an aim of education, and critique toward Dewey's views of experience and warranted assertability. Human experience is considered an important ingredient of pragmatic philosophy. It is same with Dewey. His investigations into experience are not just speculative adventure, because he directs his efforts primarily toward real-life problem. Dewey's philosophy and theory of education speak of the world of everyday life. Unlike many other philosophers, Dewey did not search beyond the realm of ordinary experience to find some more fundamental and enduring reality. For Dewey, the everyday world of common experience was all the reality that man had access to or needed. According to him, experience is of and in nature. Nature consists of stones, plants, diseases, social, condition, enjoyments, and suffering. In short, one cannot separate experience and nature. Nature is what one experiences, and one must view this experience in terms of its natural connection to the world. In fact, he defined the educational process as a continual reorganization, reconstruction and transformation of experience because he believed that it is only through experience that man learns about the world and only by the use of his experience that man can maintain and make himself better in the world. Experience is closely connected with inquiry, thus pragmatists agreed that practical consequences are the only valid test of truth, but it was Dewey who worked out these 5 step-by-step procedures, which are: 1. We observe a problem and think of its nature, main aspects. 2. We intellectualize the problem further to analyze the total difficulty or situation of which it is a part. 3. We suggest a possible solution. 4. We think and reflect possible outcome of acting on the hypothesis, suggestion. 5. We put these possible solutions into practice experimentally or inductively and ascertain the results in actual experience. These 5 steps comprise the process of reflective thinking, which always serves a useful purpose beneficial to man, beginning with the initial awareness of a problem and ending with a satisfactory conclusion. He considered the scientific mode of inquiry and the scientific systematization of human experience as the highest attainment in the evolution of the mind of man. And this way of thinking and approaching the world became the major feature of his philosophy. Education is a commitment with activity. For Dewey, learning was primarily an activity which arises from the personal experience of grappling with a problem. As mentioned, it is process of experiment inquiry that only by wrestling with the conditions of the problem at hand, seeking and finding his own way out, does he think. If he cannot devise or plan his own solution and find his own way out, he will not learn, not even if he can recite some correct answer with 100% accuracy. Philosophy of education is within, by and for experience. He states that, the more the philosophy holds that education is a development within, by, and for experience, the more important it is to define clear conceptions of what experience is. Dewey explains that the conceptions of experience should show in plans for deciding upon methods of instruction and discipline, subject matter, and upon the material and social organization of the school. That experience should not be just a term that doesn't indicate the proper operations to implement it. For Dewey, experience is ultimate reality. But not all experiences are educative, for that some experiences are miseducative. An experience is miseducative if it has the effect of arresting or distorting the growth of further experience. So the challenge for experience-based education is to provide learners with quality experiences that will result in growth and creativity in their subsequent experiences. Dewey's philosophy of experiences arises from the interaction of 2 principles, continuity and interaction. Principle as the continuity of experience or the experiential continuum, a principle necessary for the philosophy of educative experience. It is the principle of continuity of experience means that every experience both takes up something from those which have gone before and modifies in some way the quality of those which come after. In other words, according to Dewey, an educative experience is an experience in which we make a connection between what we do to things and what happens to them or us in consequence. The value of an experience lies in the perception of relationships or continuities among events. It is this natural form of learning from experience, by doing and then reflecting on what happened, which Dewey made central in his approach to schooling. For him, the continuity principle is involved in the attempts to classify the experiences that are educationally worthwhile, and those that are not. It means that it attempts to classify value of quality experiences. The other element for experience to be educative is interaction. As Dewey said, there is a need for an interaction to happen between both the objective and internal conditions for an experience to occur. He claims that experience is truly experience only when objective conditions, what the educator does and how they do it, are secondary to what goes on within the individual having the experience. This means that a normal experience involves the interaction between both the objective, what the educator does, and the learner's internal conditions. Growth is considered as central goal in education of Dewey. His idea that experience always consists of the actual life experience of an individual. It means the goal of education for growth. Growth is considered as the aim of education because growth is the characteristic of life. Education is all one with growing. It has no end beyond itself. Dewey's philosophy, however, encountered with some of critiques due to his view of warranted assertability that by restricting the warranted assertable judgment to that which terminates specific inquiry, in which the solving of the problem reaches a satisfactory conclusion, Dewey has failed to provide for truth as a goal common to all inquiry. Truth is objective, real, if unobtainable. The other serious fault is when he speaks of the solution of the problem as satisfying. By that, truth is considered as personally pleasing, accepted by a given culture at a given moment, or spoken by a person with the greatest number of offspring. Follow that, since Dewey insists that it is within the situation that inquiry must be understood, it is fair to ask for a description of the limit of the situation. On the one hand, if the situation is limited to the specific question that is here and now being inquired into, then the significance of the solution of the problem is also limited. The question then is how the individual situation can be connected with other situations of inquiry and with the rest of experience. On the other hand, if Dewey does not intend the situation to be so restricted, but intends it to extend over a considerable span of time and include many complex issues, then it is difficult to see how the situation could be limited at all. The situation in that case to include the whole of experience, and if so, Dewey is committed to holism. To defend against his critic, Dewey explained that with respect to the limits of the situation, for instance, the situation begins in the felt difficulty, the break in the continuity of experience, pain, or frustration, and this is a non-cognitive experience. When the problem has been worked through to final judgment, the solution is a restoration of balance that is immediately felt as satisfying. Hence the problem of setting the limits to the situation, of knowing that the problem is solved in the old-fashioned sense, does not arise. The limits of the situation occur as head, frustration or fulfillment. Other critique looks at Dewey's concept of experience, which is considered as all-inclusive, for the meanings of experience and to leave in doubt the question. Nature includes experience. Does experience include nature? Follow that. If experience is dominant and inclusive of nature, Dewey is an idealist. If nature is dominant and inclusive of experience, Dewey must attribute some characteristics to nature that it has regardless of how it is experienced, and hence he is a realist. To this Dewey's reply is that he is neither idealist nor realist, but a naturalist who refuses to go beyond the realm of nature as experienced in his description of it. To defend this position, Dewey expands his distinction between experience as given, as had, suffered or enjoyed, qualitatively immediate non-cognitive, and experience as the deliberate institution of inquiry, the recognition of meaning, the connecting of present experience with past and future, prediction and control, or cognitive experience. The third problems. What aspects of Dewey pragmatism can be traced in the technical vocational education training in Vietnam? Now, at this part, in order to see the traits of Dewey pragmatic practice in technical vocational education training, the analyzing will focus on practical of learning, teaching and curriculum of three vocational institutions as Ho Chi Minh City Industry and Trade College, Hanoi Industrial College in Vietnam, Germany, and growth as an aim of education and technical vocational education training. Learning and teaching as well curriculum in general technical vocational education training system, particularly in Ho Chi Minh City Industrial, Trade College, Hanoi Industrial College, and Vietnam, Germany, where practical learning is emphasized through experience. Furthermore, in Article 5 of Vocational Law 2004, defines that vocational training includes the teaching and learning of necessary knowledge, skills, and profession. This knowledge skill is not but through practice, experience, and doing learning style. Mentioned Law on Vocational Education and Training 2006 that objectives of training are focusing on the practical capability and in line with scientific and technological development and practice, together with the methods that focus on the drilling of practical capability, making full use of trainees' activeness and self-awareness, for that all the vocational schools is characterized with its practical and experience learning styles. Particularly, Hanoi College takes its mission as to give qualitative knowledge, expertise, skills, with two main programs, and this program emphasized practical training. 60 to 70% of the total course hours were allocated for practical training, while 30 to 40% was allocated for academic lectures. It is seen in also Ho Chi Minh City University of Industry and Trade in Vietnam, Germany, with its unit practice learning over the theoretical learning. Dewey believes that it is only through experience that man learns about the world, and only by the use of his experience that man can maintain and make himself better. Human existence has a lot of reasons, but the most important among them is to develop and grow. As he has said that education is growth, it is continually in technical vocational education, training with their application of learning into life, benefit for managing one's own life and for the growing of society. It is found in technical vocational education, training for what was set in the law of vocation that objects for vocational training is implemented to focus on practical ability, so the learner will be able to apply for a job, at least first for themselves as a self-employed, and second for the certain need for the society. It is also a name in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh Training Institution, particularly in HIC. It is mostly through the activity that enables students to learn practical skills in design and production, which are applicable to their jobs once they are hired by firms. More than that, according to Jürgen Hartwig in Vietnam German Vocational Training, there are around 21,000 new trainees per year that profit from demand-oriented training offers supported technical vocational education training institutes. In addition, since 2006 over 120,000 graduates found jobs with stable income at around 25% higher than the average monthly income in Vietnam, and approximately 2.6 million technical vocational education training trainees per year benefit from improved technical vocational education training policies. So around 21,000 new trainees per year benefit from demand-oriented training offers at supported technical vocational education training institutes. And 85% of all graduates found jobs related to their training with stable and decent incomes within 6 months after graduation. The study concludes that Dewey's thoughts and methods rest and express in technical vocational education training of Vietnam, where the mode and method of teaching, learning and curriculum are not but experience. This experience comes from process of experiment inquiry, that being operated upon subject matter, upon methods of instruction and discipline, as well as upon material equipment and social organization of the school. In short, technical vocational education training in Vietnam is bearing to a pragmatic philosophy of education. It is a mode of practical education by which promote growing and developing due to the changing world. This study looks into the system of technical vocational education training in Vietnam, of how it is practicing and performing the educating system. Specifically with the limitation of data, the study could focus only in 3 institutions which has been presented that known as the formal mode in technical vocational education training system. In contrast, it fails to focus on the informal modes known as the tradition and family workshop, especially the traditional village craft. In fact, these villages are directly connected with the life of Vietnamese by its role and contribution for civilization of Vietnam is very much tremendous. Secondly, dealing with the need of society and answering for the call of Mother Church to go out and serve God, whose images are poor and needy. Hence the study suggests to focus on the learning service, particularly in apostolic works that indicate an act of working, helping people in specific environs and situations. At the same time, people both experience through direct action, and they can learn, benefit, and provide to enrich and deepen more meaningful learning service that especially for future growth, not in terms of physical and intellectual knowledge but a profound grow in spirituality.